yesterday, our producer, that Shams Charania had reported, and I had to check it 3 times. I was like, there's no way this is true. And it is. The NBA is investigating the finger guns gesture by Ja Morant in a game against Golden State the other night. This is mind-boggling. This man has been suspended from the NBA for gun-related association, let's put it that way, over the last few years.
He was brandishing firearms on social media.
Correct.
Not once, but twice.
One would think when your career becomes in jeopardy because of specific attachment to guns, and this is not meant to be a gun debate, that you would maybe alter your celebration. That if you have a gun celebration, maybe throw it in the trash. There are many other celebrations you could have. I can't believe this young man continues to do this. This is, to me, you're on a diet, you're going to go to the buffet every day. You got to stay away from that. You know you can't do that. What is he doing?
I don't know what he's doing. I really don't, because I'm with you, Evan. If there was something that I did not once but twice that put my career and my financial security, my financial future, I guess I should say, I should correct myself, in jeopardy, I would make sure that I stayed as far away from that as possible. But it didn't work the first time with Ja because he brandished a firearm on social media a second time. So maybe he hasn't completely learned his lesson if this is still part of his celebration, the finger guns that we saw him do in the game. But I can't imagine how frustrated I would be if I was a member of the Memphis Grizzlies, that we're having to have this conversation and there could be repercussions around this same issue, although in a different version of it, it's still regarding the same issue yet again.
It just keeps happening, right? I mean, you think back to the incident in the club when he was on Instagram Live. This is back in 2023. The incident where he was in the car with his homeboy. The NBA investigated an incident where somebody in Ja Morant's camp had laser pointers in the arena. It's just too much. Why does he keep doing it? And the incident that happened a couple of nights ago, Buddy Hield did the gesture first toward Ja Morant, taunting him, and Morant took the bait. In that situation, you would want Ja to show a little more maturity, be more introspective, at least appear like he learned his lessons from the previous suspensions. Mm-hmm. But it's clear that he hasn't. There is a lack of maturity there, and that in large part led to Taylor Jenkins being summarily dismissed last week. And I get that he is such a phenomenal talent that you want to give him the runway to try to figure it out. But at some point, the common denominator to the problem becomes Ja Morant. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure when we get to that place with the Memphis Grizzlies, I think they're going to try to make it work with another voice in that locker room as the head coach, see if they can get through to him. But you got to think the leash is starting to get a little bit short down there in Memphis as far as their ability to tolerate all of the baggage that comes along with Ja.
It's mind-boggling. And you know what? This is going to sound ridiculous, but kudos to Buddy Hield. You did your job. You know, the Cleveland Cavaliers won a championship in 2016 because LeBron did his job. And I'm not talking about the way he played. I'm talking about baiting Draymond Green. That was the job. In that moment, hey, I'm going to bait this guy because one more technical foul, one more incident, he's suspended for a game, right? If you're going up against Ja and you realize he has no self-control over this, I don't blame Buddy Hield. Bait him.
As a competitor, isn't it part of your job to expose your opposition's vulnerability?
Yeah, he didn't do anything illegal or anything like that.
Well, no. You ain't supposed to be doing that.
Okay, but it's a good trade-off. It's a good trade-off for the Warriors.
Yeah, and that's fair.
You know?
And that's fair. Like, Ja Morant has got to be more self-aware. There is no doubt about that. I'm not excusing his behavior, letting him off the hook. But Buddy Hield ain't supposed to be doing that either.
No, and he should get fined, and Ja maybe
I can see Buddy.
Suspended?
Both of the players need to be disciplined.
Yes,
Buddy Hield should get fined. Ja Morant needs to sit down again. It's clear that he hasn't learned his lesson.
Suspended in your mind.
Well, the only way you can get through to a player at the professional ranks is to take away their candy, take away the thing that they love the most, which is the ability to be able to play.
He inevitably is going to be on that list of players this summer that is going to be talked about in terms of a new home. The person leading the way right now is clearly Kevin Durant in Phoenix. And Shams Charania, ESPN senior NBA insider, was on Get Up yesterday and talked about potential landing spots for Durant.
Once Kevin Durant knew he was potentially on the trade market, obviously the Warriors were a no at the deadline. They're going to be a no if ever.
So no to Golden State.
No, Greeny. That is not something to look at. But the teams with mutual interest, Minnesota, Houston, San Antonio, Miami, New York, my understanding, that's where the mutual interest was in February. That's where I expected to be again in the offseason. But it all comes down to how these teams fare in the playoffs, what ends up happening. One thing, unlike it at the deadline, the Suns and Kevin Durant, they're going to work together on finding his next home. He has 1 year left on his contract after this year. That does give him some level of flexibility.
Okay, so when we're talking about the summer moves here, and Kevin Durant's on that list, Ja Morant now has to be on that list. Zion Williamson has to be on that list.
Definitely.
People are going to put Giannis on that list. I'm not ready to personally do that yet. I think...
Are you with Giannis? Is it an asterisk until you see what happens in the postseason?
Well, we've done this with Giannis so many times that until it actually happens, I'm going to believe he's not going to ask out.
Okay.
But I do think there's an element of playing the results here as to what happens this summer and finding landing spots for these guys. Because inevitably, one of us is going to say Houston for one of these guys, right? Mm-hmm. So if Oklahoma City wins the title this year, why is Houston doing a 2-for-1 or 3-for-1 deal? I wouldn't if I'm them. Oklahoma City's success in building this through the draft, having 1 million guys that are capable of playing, two-way guys, if they win a title, there's proof of concept to what Houston's doing. They didn't make a mega trade for a superstar at the time. Shea was not a superstar at the time when they traded him with the Clippers. He became one.
Yeah.
I don't know that Houston gets in on these guys if Oklahoma City wins a title because they have proof of concept. The way Houston is doing it is the way that Oklahoma City is doing it. So when you think about landing spots for Kevin Durant, I think everybody goes to Houston first because Houston also has Phoenix's picks. So you can give them back. And then Phoenix could theoretically tank and get their picks back in the lottery, et cetera, et cetera. Are there specific landing spots that you've thought about for Kevin Durant or Ja or Zion that make sense for you right now?
New York Knicks.
For all of them. I think that makes sense.
Well, for Kevin Durant, it makes sense.
Okay.
For the Kevin Durant move, it makes sense. That's a team that's ready to win now. They made win now moves this past offseason, and it feels like they would have the requisite pieces that Phoenix would be interested in a trade. So for KD, you would be looking at Mikal Bridges. You would be looking at Mitchell Robinson, maybe a package including Deuce McBride as well. Something like that makes sense in terms of the Knicks' overall roster composition. If you got Jalen Brunson, OG Anunoby, Karl Anthony Towns, you know, you feel pretty, and Kevin Durant in that mix, you feel pretty good about going to battle with those guys. You feel pretty good about being the next team up when Boston inevitably takes a step back because they can't keep that team together with the tax. So, yeah, I think out of all of the possible teams that would be interested in those players, I think Kevin Durant to the New York Knicks makes the most sense.
What if they asked for Karl Anthony Towns, which they would because of the relationship with Devin Booker?
No.
So Karl Anthony Towns stays in that.
Yeah, Cat stays.
Small.
I think Cat fits what they would be wanting to, what they would want to do.
If I could place him anywhere, I would love to see him play with Ant in Minnesota. Obviously, KD is Ant's idol. Imagine the way that would invigorate Ant, having those two play together, Ant's skill set, and he and KD playing off one another. I think that would be a really fun watch.
And I know what Sham said. I think he should go to Golden State. And I think they should trade him for Jimmy Butler.
He's not going to Golden State.
He said, no.
I know.